Thanks for being with us here on Business Now. Last week we highlighted the ongoing pay gap between men and women. And because of those pay gaps, the other consequence is the retirement savings of women will not be as great as men unless that gap somehow is narrowed. But that retirement savings outcome, superannuation if you like, will also be affected by the time out of the workforce to have or to raise children. The government's now committed to pay superannuation on the government paid parental leave payments in an effort to close that gap. So here's Finance Minister Katie Gallagher at the Press Club today.
We will need legislation to pass, so that needs to be done, and we need to get the systems in place about how it's administered. We've got a bit of a window now where we can talk with people about how that will best work, but it will be in the budget. It will be published as a decision taken in the budget, and we will deliver it.
But is this move alone enough to close the gap? We're going to go through this and try and explain it to you. Mary Delahunty is the Chief Executive of the Association of Superannuation Funds in Australia and joins me now. Mary, many thanks for your time. I mean, closing the gap, it all seems to be sort of one thing to talk about the closing of the gap and the aspiration. The reality is that people work in different ways, and that may make it difficult to truly close this gap over the longer term.
Thanks, Ross. Yes, there is a persistent gap to be closed, but this decision today goes some way towards that. And so we are really thankful and very happy to see it finally taken. It's been a long time that superannuation, the broad ecosystem have been asking for this. It's got wide public support as well.
Yeah, so you can see here on the screen that I've put up the balances at rest of people aged 60 to 64. Men have 120,000, women have 88,000, a difference more than 32,000. As for I know, you do your own surveys of this. Do you see similar things as well?
We find across the various funds, you'll see a median average balance for men of about 212,000 at age 67, for women at about 159,000, so about a 25% difference. So a lot to close, and you know, as you say, some difficulties in doing so.
So there is, one is the pay gap, right? The difference in pay between men and women, and that the aspiration is to close that. The second is clearly time out of the workforce when families have children and to raise children. That can also create that gap as well. Now, this is aimed at trying to partly improve that gap when people are out of the workforce. That's the key, isn't it?
That's the key with this particular measure, and it is. It's also a matter of fairness, and I know that fairness doesn't go a long way to close a gap, but it's important to note that this is the only form of commonly taken workplace leave that doesn't attract superannuation entitlements until this commitment was made today and until we see the legislation passed and it in place. And so, yes, it makes a difference to women's retirement outcomes, but it also helps us, I think, to have more of a meaningful conversation about the contribution women make in unpaid caring roles more broadly. And that perhaps will open up some chances, or at least some form of a conversation about how we compensate more broadly for that too.
So I wanted to put up some of the rules here just so people understand this. So at the moment, this paid parental leave comes of 20 weeks of paid leave. That was increased last year. For a single income earner, they must earn under $168,000, give or take, to qualify. If they're a family, under $350,000. And they must have worked 10 months out of the previous 13 months before they've given birth. So there are hurdles there for people to be able to qualify for those payments.
We do see around 180,000 families taking advantage of these payments every year. So it is a worthwhile step. Because of the increased SG rate and because of the superannuation guarantee rates, that's the amount that comes out of your wage towards super, and because of the increase of minimum wage, that's where the calculation's done on. This will be more significant as time goes on.